decided to test out another IP camera. This particular model is the Zmodo ZP-IBI13-W. It's got a couple of features I wanted in a new IP camera. It goes outdoors, it's HD, it's wireless as well, Wi-Fi of course, and in addition to that, it's got a thumbs up on the box with the word professional written under it, so of course it must be good. In addition to that, works off QR code, so it should be easy to set up. Of course it's waterproof, it's got IR night vision LEDs and motion detection, which is supposed to send you an email. Never got that to work on other cameras, so let's see how it works with this one. It's also able to connect to tablets and things, Android and iOS devices, so all looking good so far. Let's get into it and see how it performs. Now, the ease of setting up an IP camera is almost as important as how it actually performs once you get it up and running. So we'll go through the whole process here. First thing, looking inside the box, we've got a wall wart here, UK one, with a barrel plug on the end of it for the power. This is the mount to attach it to the wall outside your house because it's a waterproof device. This adjusts with Allen keys, so you can move these three little individual parts to get the camera pointed exactly how you want. Screws to the wall with these roll plugs that are in here, of course, with the screws and the Allen key that we need to adjust it. We've got a network cable in here, a short one, but the instructions tell me that we need to attach this device to my router. Yes, we call them router in the UK, get over it. If you want to call them router, that's your own problem, but why do you say get your kicks on Route 66? You don't say Route 66, do you, anyway? And here's the cable coming out to the back of it, which you'd think you'd be able to disconnect from the camera, but you can't. It's got to hang off the back like that, and that's where you connect your power and your network cable. It's also got a little reset switch on there as well. So first thing is, we'll put the aerial on the back of it, screw it to the back of the camera. So that's for the Wi-Fi. Once we get that up and running, the camera can be mounted from the top or the bottom depending on your preference, using those screw holes. On the front, so around the lens here, we've got this light sensor and all these infrared night vision LEDs which will illuminate the scene when it goes dark. On the side of the camera next to the QR code, you can see it runs on 12 volts, 0.5 amps, 802.11 BG or N Wi-Fi. Let's get it plugged in and see how it all works. So first off, plug that into there. You can see this bit in the middle here, that's that momentary reset switch. I suppose if the camera freezes, locks up, you could press that. And this is where you plug in your network cable. Oh, by the way, that mount, I've loosened that up so you can just have a look how it operates there, the different ways you can move it around. You can do pretty much anything you need to with it. Now, most pictures show it mounted to the camera on the bottom. For me, it's going to be better on the top, I think, because I better hang it down under the garage awning that way and have less mount showing and sort of a bit more subtle, really. Now, the cable, the network cable, I'm going to plug it into this extender here rather than actually into my normal router because it's in another room and I can't reach it. That's the first thing you have to do. Then you have to download the app from the App Store. Now, I tried it first off on the iPad and this is just not working, is it? I mean, the keyboard's one way, the box is the other. You have to sort of set up an account first. It's all free, but you have to, put in a username and a password and stuff. So take two, I'm going to do it on the iPhone. Works fine. So set up my account. Next thing to do, add the camera. So you click add camera at the top, scan QR code. Scan the QR code with the camera. It recognises it, and you give it a name, and then you click connect, and that's pretty much it. Once you tap on it, the camera is now connected. It was the simplest setup of any IP camera I've done. Very easy to get up and running. Now the next thing is we're going to have to get it connected on Wi-Fi. You could leave it on network cable if you want, but I want to run mine on Wi-Fi. So you go into this settings menu here, click on your Wi-Fi, tell it the password, and that's it. Now it's able to connect to Wi-Fi. So all you have to do then is just disconnect the network cable and switch it on and off, and you're on Wi-Fi. So I put it outside on this plank here. This isn't where it's going to go permanently, it's just to demonstrate it. One thing I did notice first off, the cable, all those dongles and things, they're going to be outside, so I've had to wrap them in plastic because it's going to be raining on it. The camera's waterproof, but I'm sure all those cables and things aren't at the connections. Notice how much cable you've got as well, very short. I mean, if you try to put it through a wall, you'd have to make a very big hole to try and put those things through, and also they probably won't reach because the bracket is actually further back than the dongle is, so that's a bad idea. I think what you'd have to do is bundle them all up and put them inside some sort of waterproof outdoor case that you put on the wall, and then run a wire from that. Now the wire that does come out of it, the one wire is this black one here, and that's for the power. Of course you're going to need that. I've got it running into the house here, but again, look how short that wire is. It only goes that far. So if you were having this camera on the outside of your house, you're going to have a plug very near to that socket, or you're going to have an extension lead, which is what I've done, of course. So let's have a look how it performs. We'll go back to the app. So if we click on the image at the top, that isn't a live image. First off, that's just a still image on the screen there. It's like a thumbnail. You'd have more on the screen if you have multiple cameras. So you click on it. Now we're looking at a live image. You can see at the top right there, the time is counting up to give you an idea. The first thing though, it does start in this low definition mode. You can see at the bottom here, LD. So when you first start it up, it's always in this low definition. So you're going to click on there, click on the HD, and now we're getting into the 720p image here. You can turn it on its side, of course, to give you a better quality image so you can see what you're looking at. Notice those things that disappeared at the bottom there. Click on the screen, those are the different things that you can change, but they're only there momentarily. It's quite hard to click on them. A lot easier to do it this way because they do stay there all the time across the bottom. So the first thing on the left is the record video. If I want to record what I'm looking at now, press that one. You can see at the top left there it starts recording. So that's the video that I'm watching being recorded and saved to my iPhone. So once you press stop, then it's saved in your sort of area I'll show you later on. Again, same ID, press the camera, it'll take a still image of what you're looking at. Now the microphone and speaker icons, those are for another camera to this one. On that camera, if you press the microphone, you better speak to the camera and it will come out of a speaker, and obviously the speaker would hear what the camera can hear, but not on this particular model, but it's in the app. Another thing you can do, you can click on the cog up here, get into the settings. I mentioned before you can change the device name, so you can call it whatever you want. I've called mine Zmodo Cam. And device details, that's where you can turn on the camera microphone. I mean, if it does have one, it doesn't work on this one, put it that way. But again, that's built into this app. It's probably for a few different cameras. Motion detection you can turn on. Sharing management, you can send an email to someone who could then access your camera. SD card storage, another thing that isn't in this camera. If you click on that, nothing happens, but some cameras in the range presumably can store video that they capture with motion detection on an SD card that's inside the camera. Now along the bottom here you've got a couple of different icons. If we go in the gallery, those are the things that we stored earlier on. You know, when we stored an image or we took a grab from the camera, or when we stored a video, this is where they appear in this particular part of the app, in this gallery. Of course you can delete those and things as well. And then on this last one, those are just some general things where you can change the password for the camera rather than the default ones that are set up when you first get it. Now at the top right here, this red icon, that's to show you got one alert there, so you can click on that. It's alarms they call it, and every time it's spotted motion, it saved a little image that I can then look at to show me what it was that it saw. Now if you look at these, look at the time, 11:59, the end of December. I'll tell you what that was. That was somebody letting off fireworks next door, which obviously lit up the garden and made it think that there was some sort of motion being detected. One thing I don't like about this app, every time you go into it, it goes into that low definition mode. So every time I click on it, I then have to change it into HD, which is a bit irritating. So we've seen the iPhone app in action there, but I know some people want to see the Android version, so this is what that looks like. Pretty much the same experience, but there's a couple of nice little tweaks. For example, it does remember the resolution that you last had the app in, so it'll reload in HD if that's what you selected last time. And if you turn it into portrait mode, underneath the image you can see the data rates as well for the video that's coming through. So a slightly better app on Android than on iOS. Now going back to that iPad app that we started off in, let me just show you a couple of things that are wrong with it. When you started off in landscape mode like this, you look for the controls to change it into HD or do anything, and they're not on screen. So you think, oh, that's a bit weird. I'll turn it into portrait mode. And then they appear on the left and the image goes full screen. So you think, oh, great, that's just what I wanted. So I'll turn it back to have a look at it. And then it spins it around again the other way and crops out half the image. And whatever you do after that, whichever way you turn it, you don't get the full image back again. So it is a really properly broken app on the iPad. I did figure out in the end how to get around this situation though, and what it is, you have to start it off in portrait mode. If you start the app in portrait mode, it'll actually work properly. You can get into it, click on it, see the image, and you've got the options at the bottom to change the settings, and if you turn it into landscape mode, the app does properly turn into landscape and show everything on screen, although it does crop the edges off a little bit. The date and timestamp on this camera is a little bit unusual. Notice it at the top right there, you've got white and black digits, and what it does is it tries to put black digits on a light colour background and white digits on a dark colour background, but sometimes it gets it slightly wrong and it means it flickers a little bit or they change colour, which is a bit unusual. To set that date and time, you have to download a piece of software for a Windows PC. And once you've got that installed, I'm using it on Windows 8 here, you just click Find Camera, it finds the camera on the network, you then add it into your cameras, and you can see it on the screen here. On that screen you can have them in a few different layouts, and in fact you can have up to 16 cameras on screen at once if you've got them. But I really must reiterate, because this is most important, the only way you can correctly set the date and time on your camera is by using this piece of software, not those iOS or Android apps. In addition to that, of course, it can do lots of other changes to the camera you can't do in the apps, adjusting the image quality, for example, setting schedules so that the camera will turn on or off on certain days at certain times. And in these screens, that's where you set all the motion detection stuff. You give it the details of an email account that it can use to send emails, and then the email address you want it to send messages through to every time it senses motion. And you can also tell it to ignore certain parts of the image, so that if you've got a fluttering flag in your garden, for example, tell it to ignore that, but just look for motion in the rest of the image. And it does actually work. It'll send you through a message every time it senses motion, together with a picture showing you what it saw at the time. Finally, let's test out that night vision capability. So first off, we'll just have a look at the scene during the daytime, and then have a look what it looks like in pitch blackness, and it's quite impressive really. The IR LEDs do light up quite a large area. They're invisible to the naked eye. You can see me stumbling around here, try not to fall over. It's pitch black, but you can see me perfectly well on the camera. The little white bits flying past the lens, by the way, that's rain getting illuminated by those LEDs as well. Right, let me try and sum up the pros and cons of this particular camera, in my opinion. The first one is I found it very easy to get this camera up and running. IP cameras can sometimes be tricky, but not this one. I'm pretty sure anyone could do it. It's also worked non-stop 24/7 for over a week now, all sorts of conditions, and it's never frozen up once. The motion activation actually works on this camera and does send me emails. I've used various IP cameras that have promised to work but don't. This one actually does. And the price, pretty reasonable. I paid £59 for this, I think. That was including delivery. I've got some links in the video description if you want to get hold of one of these. Now, the disadvantages of this particular one: short cables. Those cables aren't long enough to mount the camera to a wall and then move the cables inside. You're going to have to mount them outside somewhere in some sort of junction box that's waterproof. You do need PC software for this camera to be able to change the time and do some of the other setups. You can't use Mac software, and you can't use the apps for those functions. Also, the iPad app is an absolute shambles. It just doesn't work properly at all. I mean, it does if you know the trick, but you shouldn't have to know a trick to use an app. And this particular camera doesn't have that SD card storage, which they tantalizingly show in the app, which I actually think would probably be quite a nice feature now. It could store copies of all the motion activated things that it'd see while you were out, and then when you got home you could play them all back. I thought that might be a bit of fun. You could at least see the neighbour's cat walking across your garden or something. And there's one final thing that I've left off the list, but it could be a pro or a con depending on who you are, and that's that the camera being white and large is quite noticeable. So for some people that's a pro because it's sort of scaring people off, saying look, there's a security camera here, but for others it's a con because really they don't want to draw attention to their property by saying, hey look, here's a security camera, there must be something in here that's valuable, that's worth stealing. So I'll leave it up to you to decide which side of that fence you stand. But that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.